Hello there, fellow humans. Thanks for checking in on me once again. Today, I actually wanted to go over a new topic. This was a topic that was suggested to me by a viewer of the channel. And as you can see, I'm in a slightly different setting now, and we'll see how this looks after post-production. I wanted to start off by saying there was a topic kind of floating around in my mind that I've been going over the last couple days. I don't typically like to do much in the way of responses to trolls, and sometimes I can't help myself, and sometimes a little bit of a troll comes out of me. Sometimes I'll do kind of like smart ass remarks back if I do respond. Other times I just ignore. But I think that I might need to start moderating on comments from channels that were just created. I seem to have a some kind of attraction to brand new YouTubers who just opened their channel like the day before. But it's interesting because what I wanted to talk about regarding that kind of fits in with the suggested topic that my friend brought up, and her topic of suggestion was on listening to understand versus listening to get a chance to talk. And I think this kind of fits with what I was going to talk about, which is when I do a video, oftentimes, I guess I could put it this way. Disagreeing with me doesn't make you a troll. But when I'm able to see my analytics and I know how long people have listened to or watched the show, and that thumbs down button gets clicked before it's even been watched, and the comments are oftentimes indicative of either not watching it or giving them the benefit of the doubt, just not understanding. And so this is where kind of listening comes into play. Case in point here, I was kind of challenged, I guess you could say, on my actually being a conformist as opposed to somebody who questions the consensus. So, and the idea being that because I advocate for wearing masks, because I listen to people who are smarter than me. In the military, one of the first things that you learn is how to be a follower. It's like almost the first thing. I mean, at least in my memory, it's right there when you start. And it's not meant as a bad or derogatory thing. It's about finding your way, finding your path towards leadership, towards excellence, in whatever that may be. It starts with being a follower. And I think that kind of goes in hand with being a listener. Being a good listener, which means having your ears and your mind open and not rushing to judgment. Like my body cam footage of George Floyd is a textbook example of this. I happened to be responding to Ben Shapiro, and I actually went out of my way to be respectful. I was actually calling him Mr. Shapiro. Okay, I'm the same age as him, but I was calling him Mr. Shapiro just for that respect, right? I'm just referring to him out of respect. Didn't call him one name, didn't insult his intelligence. All I did was outline specifically what he said and what the textbook law in Minnesota, which is what we were talking about, what that is and the legal definition of felony murder. And does it apply to what happened here? Now you can argue that George Floyd had it coming. If that's your position, then that's your position. But you can't you can't argue with the literal textbook definition of the law. And that's what was happening. Is first off, you have Ben Shapiro. He was not classifying it as felony murder. He was classifying it as murder, which is actually a totally different thing. Again, this is not my opinion. This is just the literal fact. He wasn't emphasizing that point, and I gave him the benefit of thinking that he's an intelligent man and that he would know that he would know that distinction, so that he's either deliberately withholding that or he's just mistaken. So that's all I did. I laid out what the actual fact was, and again, respectfully too, look at the thread of comments. I actually ended up, after a while, kind of got tired of seeing some of them, so I ended up moderating out some of them. But some of them are still there, and it's interesting because people tend to argue a point that wasn't made. And I guess for bringing everything back around to listening, if you are listening with the intention of arguing, with the intention of having a debate, then you're just going to hear what you filter through. You're going to hear what you want to hear. And I think, this particular example with me and what does it mean to question the consensus, there's not a conflict there. If you think that, I'm just some kind of leftist conformist and I just do what I'm told. If you knew an iota about me, you would know that is completely not who I am. The whole point of the question, the consensus of the podcast, the 10th man rule, is to question everything. But therein lies the distinction, and this is where I bring it back to listening. Listening and questioning something does not equal disagreeing. So if I'm questioning the consensus, it means I'm checking it. I'm auditing it for the facts. That's literally all that means. Much the same way when I was pointing out the issues with what Ben Shapiro was saying in juxtaposition to the textbook law, that's all I was doing. When you're implying that I'm just a conformist and that somehow my slogan of questioning the consensus is false or misleading because you think that I don't actually disagree with the consensus, well, you're marrying terms that don't go together. Okay, so questioning doesn't equal flat out disagreeing. Having said that, if the question is, what consensus do I agree with or disagree with, progressivism is in and of itself questioning the consensus. That's what progressivism is. Conservatism is literally wanting to keep things the way they are, or in some cases, like currently, pushing things back. But progressivism is literally questioning the status quo. If you want some examples, I've gone over a lot of them over the course of the last year on this show, but I can go over a few more. Euthanasia in America, I don't know currently what the standard is across the board. I know that until fairly recently, it was still a minority opinion to be in support of euthanasia, which is physician-assisted suicide for people who are terminally ill. That's something that I'm extremely in favor of and have been extremely in favor of that for a long time, even, like I said, when it was not the popular opinion, which I'm not sure if it is now or not. Gay marriage, I've been for that for as long as I was old enough to really comprehend it, at least 20 years, well before it was a democratic establishment safe concept. I disagreed with the fact that Obama and Biden, to a lesser extent, because he actually came out in support of it sooner, but Obama did not even publicly endorse gay marriage until well into his first term. Hillary Clinton was very outspoken against gay marriage for a very long time. So I'm very against that. I'm very against the establishment politics not taking a hard stance on a social issue like that until it's politically safe. I was against that. I was against the Iraq War, which was also heavily assisted by Democrats at the time. After the CARES Act came out earlier this year, and when we were talking about defunding the police and where the money was going in those situations, why we would want to defund the police and where the money would go in lieu, and then in context of the CARES Act specifically, I call out the Democrats. I call out the Democrats for holding back on roll calls for some of these issues. It was the Democrats that stopped some of these votes from moving forward for reallocation of money from the billionaire corporations and for the defunding the police argument in general, because again it's a heated topic and it was not a politically safe time to do it. I was against that at the time. I'm still against it now. Those are just a few examples that I am thinking about in fairly recent history. I also will say that when Donald Trump debated in 2016 during the primaries, when he still had a whole field of Republican candidates, there was a moment where he was arguing with Jeb Bush, and I 100% took Donald Trump's side on that particular issue because he was talking about the Iraq War and the Bush's support and perpetuation of that war. And now, I'm not saying that Donald Trump isn't a hypocrite and isn't full of it, saying that he was or wasn't against it at this time and now he is or now he isn't. But in that moment, his stance being that the Iraq War was a failure and that he was against it, I was on his side. I was not on Jeb Bush's side. What I'm trying to say here is that, yes, I question, and in many cases I disagree with the consensus, with groupthink. Bringing it all back around, that's what the concept is really about. It's about checking groupthink, because what happens is you have a large group of people and you get it's kind of a herd mentality. So everybody is seeing that the environment is perpetuating a safe aura, if you will, on this particular position, and so it's awkward and uncomfortable to be the one to point out that the emperor's not wearing clothes, the elephant in the room. That's what that's about, and it's not any one thing. It's a philosophy. It's never ending. It's why you make sure that you got the correct amount in your tax refund. You make sure that you didn't have too much taken out of your paycheck. You make sure that you got charged for the items that you actually ordered at the restaurant. I mean, this is just basic common sense as you go through life. That's what questioning is about. And the idea that, as an academic, as somebody who has served in the past, like, the idea that listening to people who have more experience, more education, more knowledge and wisdom than yourself somehow makes you a drone or a zombie or whatever alt-right term you want to call it that Mark Dice taught you, is just absurd. It's so counter to any kind of progress or enlightenment in our society, to have that mentality to equate respect for knowledge and academic and experience, to equate that with some kind of weakness or some kind of just drone. It's just it's not helping you push forward. That was kind of what I wanted to say about that, lest there be any kind of misunderstandings on my position when it comes to questioning things. And to bring it back around to the topic, if there's a point to all this, listening, right? So when you're listening to somebody, you have to be open to the message, and you can't fill in the blanks ahead of time. And that's where misunderstandings come in. So when somebody is saying something and you've already got an opinion about that person and about that person's message, you're manifesting what they're saying. It's like how if you're thinking about something, if you're thinking about a particular number for some reason, like it's a birthday, or you have just something that's come up. A lot of times, like people talk about how when you're pregnant, you see a lot of pregnant women. When you get a new car, you see a lot of that particular car all over the place. You manifest what you want to see, because you pick those out as singularities. So that's what happens. So for true enlightenment, for true wisdom and growth, you have to listen for the sake of listening, not because I want to say something in response. You can say something in response, but it needs to be a spontaneous, earnest, good faith response based on the interpretation of what was said, not the premature declaration of the intention of the other person. So, in a nutshell, I think that's a good good summation of listening, and I felt compelled to speak on this because I was really, honestly, just humbled that somebody, would be interested in what I have to say on any topic, but this topic in particular, and B, stating that they think that I might be somebody who's a good listener, and that's one of the highest compliments that I think I could have, because, again, anybody can talk, anybody can have an opinion. Like, I don't think that what I'm doing right now is particularly special. I'm just kind of sharing my interpretation of how I see things, but where the real strength and wisdom comes in is taking that message, interpreting it, and then applying it in appropriate ways. And I'm not talking about me specifically anymore. I'm just saying in general, when you're hearing a message from somebody that you respect, and I have to think that if you're responding to somebody, then you have to at least respect them to a certain degree. Even if you're responding to antagonize, you're still putting in that time. But the real indicator of whether you're really attempting to grow is, are you listening to listen, or are you listening to get your chance to speak? So I'm curious. This is interesting. Like, it's an interesting thought. So I'm curious what you guys think about that. Yeah, I appreciate you for sticking with me this whole time, and I'll be talking to you guys again really soon. Have a great rest of your day, and remember, don't be afraid to question the consensus.